Time for the Inside Travel Talk podcast, a radio show. Coming up on today's show, Mark and I will be talking about the flash sale going on with Globus Tours in Eastern Europe. 35% off and free airfare with NCL. And we're also going to give you the top 3 cruises with Norwegian Cruise Lines. Let's start the show. The Inside Travel Talk podcast, a radio show presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, contains travel deals, promotions, and offers that may be time sensitive. All offers and information were accurate when the show aired. Travel deals and offers change constantly and are capacity controlled and subject to change without notice.
Explore your world. It's the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Call or text the show now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700, and check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. And now, here are your hosts, Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
Happy birthday, America. What a great country we live in, and what a privilege it is to be an American. Welcome to the Inside Travel Talk podcast, a radio show. Hello there, I'm Patrick Wiscombe alongside Mark Faldmo. Coming up in this edition of the show, we will be talking about 35% off and free airfare with Norwegian Cruise Lines, and we're also going to give you the top 3 destinations. And if you've always wanted to go to Eastern Europe, we're going to tell you how to get there because Globus Tours, one of our suppliers, has an amazing offer for our listeners this week. The entire purpose of this radio show and podcast is to help you plan and book your next vacation or just give you ideas of where you may want to consider going on vacation next. And we are presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. And thank you again for taking the time to stop and listen. Mark Faldmo, this is an abbreviated version of the show because we're actually recorded this week because you and I are out celebrating America. Where are you today?
We are. Yep. I'm just at home today, getting ready to leave to head down south to visit some family.
Let's get right to the travel news headlines. SkyWest. If people don't know what SkyWest is it a kind of a commuter airline, regional airline?
SkyWest is a regional carrier, and they operate, like Delta Connection. They also operate American Eagle, United Express, and flights for Alaska Airlines. So they kind of contract with all the airlines to operate their shorter flights. And SkyWest is a company that's based right here in Utah.
SkyWest has ordered 60 Embraer E175 planes. They've just ordered 60 more.
They ordered the 60 Embraer E175 aircraft, which I'm excited about. These are slated to replace the older CRJ 700, which I think is a good move. The Embraer E175 is a much more comfortable aircraft to fly on than those CRJs. Hyatt
has completed their $2.6 billion acquisition of Playa. What do we know?
Hyatt wanted to get into the all-inclusive business, but they didn't want to jump in full force. And so they contracted out with Playa Resorts to open what are the Hyatt Ziva resorts, which are some of my favorite resorts. Yeah. A little bit later on, Hyatt wanted more, and so they bought a company called AM Resorts, which has Secrets, Dreams, a lot of the really famous all-inclusives. So Hyatt kind of had these 2 different companies operating their hotels. So it made sense for them just to purchase Hyatt. So now all of the Hyatts are under one brand, one ownership. Playa Resorts also operated several other. They operated some Wyndham all-inclusives, which are being sold off. They operated some Hilton all-inclusives, which are being incorporated into the Hyatt brand. Some of those are going to be like Dreams and Secrets, some of those old Hilton properties. So this does add an additional 15 hotels to the Hyatt portfolio in Mexico and the Caribbean.
Because this is an abbreviated show, because of the July 4th holiday, and again, happy birthday, America. I love living in this great country. And I know you do too, Mark.
I do, yeah.
We're just going to jump right to the hot travel deal of the week. This was something that really caught my eye. You told me before the show, hey, I really have a good promotion this week for the hot travel deal of the week. And this is the Globus Travel Flash Sale, where you can save up to $500 per person on escape tours. But my first question is, and I can hear the listeners saying, well, what are escape tours?
It's not like an escape room. No, an escape tour for Globus is an off-season tour. So these are tours that operate November through March, which gives you several advantages. First is the price. These are very good prices, less crowds, which is always a good thing. One of my favorite places to go is Antwerp in Belgium. There's a main square there that's always so crowded. I had the opportunity a few years back to go there in March, and we were on the walking tour through the city and came out to this main square. I have a picture of myself, and I am the only person you can see in the whole picture in front of the main fountain. It's so nice to travel when there are fewer crowds, especially when you're going into the museums, some of the different attractions. These escape tours are designed purely around that. Less crowds and a lower price. They're typically 40 to 50% lower than a similar tour is in the summertime.
So big savings.
A big savings.
Okay.
Yes.
So where are we going?
Let's start with Imperial Escape, which is in Central Europe. This is a 7-day tour that goes from Budapest to Prague, and the other stop in that is Vienna. So you spend a few nights in Budapest, a few nights in Vienna, and a few nights in Prague.
And this is not a cruise. This is a land tour, right?
This is a land tour. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Wow.
a really good tour for that Central Europe. The best part of it is the price. So that Imperial Escape, again, a 7-day tour, starts at $1,099 per person.
Wow.
So that's your hotel, your transportation. You're with a professional guide, admissions to all of the places you visit, tours every day. That is a very good tour.
Oh, yeah.
We'll move on to Scotland.
I'm personally interested in this one.
This one starts in Edinburgh and ends in Glasgow, or vice versa. I think this is the best itinerary. So let's do the one that starts in Glasgow.
Yeah.
So you'll go up to Fort Williams, which is by where the Harry Potter train is at, Loch Ness, Coldenmore, which is in the Highlands, and then to Inverness, Scotland. Then you come down and you spend a night in Inverness, and then you come down, stop in St. Andrews, famous golf course.
Oh, yeah.
And then you finish the tour with a few nights in Edinburgh.
Oh, wow.
And this one, again, 7 days is less than $1,000 per person. It's $959 per person.
Wow.
So if you've ever wanted to see Scotland, and the one thing that's interesting about Ireland and Scotland, they're a further north latitude. So a lot of people say it's going to be cold and snowy, but they get the warm ocean current up from Africa. So the British Isles are fairly temperate compared to us here at lower latitude than there. So, I remember south coast of Ireland, I was surprised because there are palm trees, because the coconuts, whatever, come up in that current, and there's just palm trees on the south coast of Ireland. So,
oh, wow.
So it's cool. You'll definitely need a jacket or a coat, but it's not weather like, we have. So,
see, I would have never guessed that.
Yeah. So to go during that November through March timeframe to save the crowds, this is a great tour.
Yeah, it is. Okay. What other tours do we have?
English Escape Tour. Again, these are all 7-day tours. And this one starts in London, a few nights in London. Then you go up to Oxford, then spend a night in Stratford upon Avon, which is Shakespeare country, and then go up to York, which is one of my favorite places. I love York, going to the York Minster. They have what's called the Shambles there, which is the narrow streets with glass paned shops. Just a wonderful place to walk through. And then over the last few nights in Manchester with some visits to like Liverpool and other places like that.
Oh, wow.
And this is the most expensive one of the trips we've talked about so far. It is $1,269 per person. But again, for the tour, that's an amazing price.
Yeah. November to March, So we're looking November
to March.
2025 to March 2026 to save this kind of money.
Yeah, to save this kind of money. And then we'll just highlight one more, because this is one that's on my bucket list, a place that I want to go to, Northern Africa. So this tour starts and ends in Casablanca, goes to Casablanca, Rabat, spends 2 nights in Fez, 2 nights in Marrakesh, and then back for a few nights in Casablanca on the end. Morocco has just always intrigued me. My dad got back from Morocco a few weeks ago and just said it was an amazing trip, because you have the Spanish influence, the Moorish influence, just a whole bunch of different cultures merged into that country, which make it fascinating.
Did he say that it was better than what he had expected?
He did. Yeah. Yeah.
Your dad is well-traveled. Well, so are you.
He is. Yeah.
Who has more miles, you or your dad? You have 4 million miles, or nearly 4 million miles traveled. What does he have?
I probably have a little bit more because
wow.
I've tracked mine more. He got laid into the kind of frequent flyer game. I'm sure if you look at it in a lifetime, he has many more miles than I have. But if you look at the frequent flyer accounts, I do.
Look at the evidence. Who has more miles? It's you.
Yeah.
What a great experience. I like what you said. November 2025 to March 2026, 40 to 50% off what would be the normal price for these exact same tours. And I thought it was interesting how you said it's more temperate because of the warmer weather coming up from Africa, if I got that right.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Take advantage of that offer. That is an exclusive for our listeners from Globus. This is their flash sale. Call Mark in his office, 888-718-7717, 888-718-7717, and he'll also post this on blueplanetvacations.com. When we come back, it is time for the infamous Just Cruising segment, where it's only about the cruise news and it's only about cruise deals. That is next when the Inside Travel Talk podcast or radio show continues. Alongside Mark Faldmo, my name is Patrick Wiscombe. Thank you so much for listening. We will be right back.
Taking you to destinations around the world. The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show is presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show now. 801-649-3700. 801-649-3700. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back.
Inside Travel Talk is brought to you by AMA Waterways. From castles and capitals to vistas and villages, visit some of Europe's most remarkable sites and cities. To set out on your own river cruise journey, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.
Now, back to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show right now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700, and check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. Here's Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
Happy birthday to America, a beautiful country, a great country. We're still the envy of the world, and it is a privilege to be called an American. And I know that I speak for Mark. He has no idea that I'm going to say this, but what an amazing opportunity to go out and see the world and then come home and just go, you know what? America's awesome. We are blessed to live here. Coming up in this segment of this abbreviated edition of the Inside Travel Talk podcast or radio show, we will be talking about 35% off savings plus free airfare for a second guest plus free excursion credits, free Wi-Fi, also unlimited bar and free specialty dining. This is The infamous Just Cruising segment, done a little bit earlier than we normally do it. Normally we do it at the bottom of the hour, but since Mark and I are on holiday right now, because of the holiday, we're doing an abbreviated version of the show. Mark, let's get right to the cruise news headlines. Cruise guests are increasingly asking for private premier shore excursions. I love this idea.
This was two groups that kind of do third-party shore excursions. One is Shore Excursions Group, which is who I recommend and who I use all the time. They're just saying their demand for private shore excursions has about tripled in the last few years.
Can I make an important distinction here? So there's cruise ship excursions that you pay for, but this is actually a should I call them a private company called Shore Excursions Group?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. So they're a third-party shore excursion provider. So they often take a lot of the tours that you find on board a cruise ship, do them in a little bit smaller groups for a better price.
Okay.
And so that's what Shore Excursion Group is known for. But now they're really starting to add these private shore excursions. I think a private shore excursion is much better than the group shore excursions. Sometimes they're a little bit more expensive, but I do have an example here. I have a family going on a Mediterranean cruise over Christmas, and we were looking for shore excursions for them. And they wanted to go in Barcelona up to Montserrat to the monastery. And so the cruise line shore excursion was $105 per person. So that's with a group of 30 or 40. And I was looking at Shore Excursions Group, and they have a private shore excursion. So up to 8 people, it was $140 per person. It's not a whole lot more than what the cruise line was offering.
No.
But you're in your own vehicle with your own guide and your own driver.
And that's the difference right there.
So, yeah. And so these private shore excursions, I think, are the way to go. And actually, probably the last 3 or 4 months, I've sold more of these private shore excursions in 3 months than I've probably sold in my whole career.
Oh, wow.
It's a great way to do this, especially like in Europe. Like if you're in Rome, for instance, those are long days. Those are 10 to 12 hours long shore excursions. The same family. Now, this is not on a shore excursion because they're spending a day in Rome, but this can be done as a private shore excursion from the port. They had a family of 7 and they did a full day tour for about $1,800 of Rome. It included the entrance to the Sistine Chapel, entrance to the Colosseum, all of the sites. And so to do that one as a private shore excursion just makes a lot of sense.
Do you cut to the front of the line?
You do. Most of these have the skip the line entrances at a lot of the places. So
I would rather pay a little bit more to get a better experience than to just stand in line all day.
For those that are interested in just looking at these, on the Blue Planet Vacations website, there's a tab for shore excursions. You can look at that. Or just in the cruise booking engine, down at the very bottom, it says cruise shore excursions. If you click on that, it'll take you to this and you can look at all of the private shore excursions or just all of the shore excursions in general.
I didn't know that was on the website, so I'm glad you brought that up. Always in the infamous Just Cruising segment is the cruise deal of the week. This is what we're famous for. And we've got Norwegian Cruise Lines. It's 35% off savings, plus free airfare for a second guest, free excursion credit, free Wi-Fi, also unlimited bar and free specialty dining. That's a lot of free. And what promotions do we have? Well, you know what? My first question is, Mark, how does free airfare work with this promotion?
So, this is a promotion that Norwegian's had for a while, but it is very good. So it is free airfare for the second person. So the first person pays whatever Norwegian's rate is for that, and then the second person goes free. And sometimes this is a very good deal, and it literally is almost 50% off the regular price. So we've talked about the Hawaii to Tahiti cruise.
Yeah.
When I had a group that did that, the first person paid about $1,200 and the second person was free. So that was basically $600 a person when you average it all out to go fly to Hawaii and fly home from Tahiti. So sometimes you can find that this is a great way to go. Now, the drawback with doing the cruise line air, and this is true of almost every cruise line, is you don't have any say in the airline or flight schedule. When you buy their airfare, they put you on whatever fits within their contracts.
Right.
So it's a great way to save money, but you do have to understand that you don't have a say in what airline or what flight schedule you're on. But other parts of this promotion, the free shore excursion credit. So you get a shore excursion credit in each port, which helps you save money. The free Wi-Fi package, which is also, it's like 75 or 120 minutes free, something like that. So this is a really good, solid promotion by Norwegian.
What are the destinations? Let's start there.
I just picked what I think are the 3 best cruise promotions, cruise departures for Norwegian. Interesting how I found this. On the Blue Planet Vacations website, you can go into the cruise search, but you could just put in a date and look at all cruise lines and find the best prices for a certain month. So this one, I just put in Norwegian Cruise Line, put in January to see what their best prices were, and it pulled up every single sailing of Norwegian in January. So I could search through all of the best prices.
So this is customer facing, meaning whoever's listening could literally go to blueplanetvacations.com and do what you're doing. It's not something they have to call you for.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
They could go and do their research on the cruise they want. They can book it online, or they can call us to book their cruise. So the first itinerary I looked at was just a 7-day Mexican Riviera itinerary in January. This was a January 18th date. The price is $599 per person, but a balcony is $879 per person.
Oh, wow.
So for a mid-January date, this is pretty good. And that's just the standard Mexican Riviera, Cabo, Mazatlan, Puerto Vallarta. And then you get that promotion that we talked about.
Is that on the Bliss?
That's on the Bliss.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll move on to the Caribbean. This is a round trip from New Orleans. Its ports are Cozumel, Harvest Caye, Roatan, and Costa Maya before it gets back to New Orleans. This is several January dates that are about the same. Starts at $659 per person. Balcony cabins are $889 per person. So a great way to get out of the cold. Roatan, one of my favorites. Also Costa Maya, one of my favorites.
So out of the 7 days, you have 4 port days.
4 port days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the last one?
The last one is a repositioning cruise. I think this one is interesting. It's December. It's the first part of December, leaves December 6th, and it is Barcelona to La Romana in the Dominican Republic. Now, this one would be the perfect itinerary on Norwegian to look at that second person flies free.
Oh, yeah, it would.
Because I'm sure the airfare rate on this would be fantastic.
How many days is this one?
So this one is a 16-day cruise, leaves from Barcelona, goes to Malaga in Spain, Cadiz, Casablanca, that we were just talking about in Morocco.
Right.
Goes to one other port in Morocco, and then it goes to Porto Grande, which is a port off of Africa, and then sails across to St. Martin, Tortola, and then ends in La Romana.
You go to Phillipsburg on this one?
You do. Yeah.
If you go to Phillipsburg, St. Martin, go to Maho Beach, and that's the famous place where you can go to the beach and the planes fly over your head.
Yes.
One of the best experiences I've ever had in my life.
I love that activity too. There's a bar there that has kind of a deck that just looks out over that. So I just go and have lunch there and watch the planes land and watch the people get blown over by the planes. So
I was behind one of those jet blasts. Wear eye protection.
Yes. Yeah.
You'll get a face full of sand.
Yeah.
What ship is this on, Mark, for the 16-day repositioning cruise?
This is on the Norwegian Sky, which is one of the Norwegian smaller vessels. It's about 92,000 gross tons. So it actually is the smallest in their fleet right now. The best part of this is the price. 16 days. Inside cabin starts at $11.29 per person.
Wow.
And the balcony starts at $28.14. The price is the best part, but probably that itinerary. That is one of the more interesting repositioning itineraries that I've seen. It has more ports than most itinerary. and less days at sea. So the longest it has is 4 days at sea. Most of those would have 5 to 7 days at sea.
Yeah.
So you are breaking up days at sea on this itinerary.
Take advantage of that. That is a tremendous offer, and that starts January 2026. That 16-day repositioning cruise, did you say it was December, 6th, 2025, somewhere right in there?
December 6th through December 22nd.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. Take advantage of those offers. 888-718-7717, 888-718-7717, and you can also go to blueplanetvacations.com. Well, that's it for this abbreviated version of the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. You can listen to this very show again tomorrow morning, Sunday at 11 a.m. right here on this radio station, and of course around the country. Plus, you can stream, download, and subscribe to the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. We're on all of the major podcast platforms, and you can just stream the show right on the website. Now it's your turn to get out and explore the world while you can, because you never know what curveballs life is going to throw at you. Live your life deliberately, live your life intentionally. Thanks for listening. Happy birthday, America. We'll talk to you next Saturday and Sunday. Have a great week.
That's it. That's the end of the show. You've been listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show with Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Book your adventure right now. Call 888-718-7717. That's 888-718-7717. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.
This segment of Inside Travel Talk is sponsored by El Dorado Spa Resorts. Escape to Cancun's Riviera Maya with authentic, all-inclusive luxury at an El Dorado Spa Resort. To book your romantic beach getaway, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.